On today's show, it's all about water heater repair in Houston.
Who told you we're plumbers? We're plumbers.
I'm John Eccles.
Richard Sod. We're coming out of the hardest months, which is called winter, for water heaters.
That's right.
So when do they work the hardest? It's the winter. Now we're coming out of that. Now is a good time to pay attention to your water heater and get things looked at before it hits the summertime.
That's right.
You agree?
Oh, yeah, just came out of a really stressful kind of time.
Yeah, it worked the hardest.
Yeah, right.
Now's the time to look at it.
That's it.
Right, John?
That's
in your attic.
In your attic, in your garage.
That's exactly right. So there's not a lot of components that can go wrong with a tank-type water heater,
right.
whether that be gas or electric. So what we're going to discuss today are some of these components that can go out, that can make a difference on how it heats your water, and when do you need some help?
It's pretty simple, right?
Pretty simple. That's right. So what's the largest component of a tank water heater?
It's pretty simple there, actually. The tank. The tank.
Ah, yeah, that's worth no money.
Yeah, so that is the largest component, right? It makes up the bulk of the size of the unit and what's going on. And basically just a giant storage tank that's holding your water. For about the past 60 years, these things have been manufactured the same as they are right now, which is going to be, a stainless, or not a stainless, a steel cylinder.
Yeah. Carbon steel.
Yeah, carbon
typically.
steel. That is normally coated in glass on the inside to help prevent some of the erosion. Or not erosion, corrosion. Hello.
You could have erosion.
Yeah.
Water erodes and corrodes, right?
Well, so the biggest problem with that manufacturing process, though, is because manufacturers want to do what? They want things to be cost effective. And sometimes that glass infusion isn't evenly coated, so it leaves some weak spots in the tank. And that's where you can run into some problems. And you don't know that because no one gets to see the inside of it before it's put in.
It's all welded up together.
Yeah.
And it's all insulated on the outside, and it's got this nice, pretty jacket, right?
Yeah.
With 2 or 3 inches of insulation, depending on which unit you get.
Right.
So you have no idea what that looks like.
That's right. And the tanks, I guess it goes good to say that they come in different sizes, right? You can get a 40, a 50, some of them are 75. You can still get 30s if you wanted one. Those are all gallons we're talking about. But back to the spots, the corrosion part, right? That just leads into the next part. So because of that ability to corrode from the inside out, what's the next part that really helps out with that?
The anode rod.
The anode rod.
Now that's worth some money.
Absolutely. That's definitely worth some money because I'm sure the customers aren't really sure what that is.
I would say most people have not heard about that. So what is it?
Man, it's probably, obviously it's a very important part of your water heater. And all it is it's a carbon steel rod that's caked with built around aluminum or magnesium, right? And the reason why that is those metals are less reactive than the steel that the actual cylinder is made out of.
That's right.
Right? And when we're talking about water and the minerals and the hardness in water and how it attacks things, right, normally it goes after a less reactive metal versus the more reactive metal first. So in Houston water, which is not the best water in the nation, right, we want, or the manufacturers want, the water and the minerals and stuff that's going to corrode that tank to attack that anode rod. And a lot of people in the business, and you'll see it online, they'll talk about it's the sacrificial anode rod.
Simplistic terms, is it's going to eat that rod first before it eats the tank.
That's right.
So if you don't check that rod at intervals, right, and it's already gone, then the water's going to start attacking the tank.
That's right.
And your tank is not going to last as long. And that's when you hear people in the that have water heaters in the attic, and all of a sudden water's coming down 1 story, 2 stories, or 3 stories, like they're building over here in the Heights, and it starts traveling downwards. Well, your anno rod's gone.
That's right.
More than likely, and it ate the tank. So that's a very important piece to a water heater.
Absolutely.
And that needs to be checked. Now, as a homeowner, are you checking that?
Personally?
Yeah, me either. No, not doing it.
No.
You need to call somebody to do it. It's actually not easy to take that part out and to check it. Plus, as a homeowner, we don't really know what we're looking at.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
How do I know if it's bad? How do we not know if it's bad? So, very important that that gets checked at certain intervals of the life of this water heater,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That can really absolutely help the life expectancy.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what else does water attack that's inside that tank?
So this is going to be a different one because people aren't going to expect it, right? Me and Rich
Right.
were actually talking about this earlier. Dip tubes.
Yeah.
So what is the dip tube?
Simplistic terms, it's made out of plastic.
Right.
Right? Polypropylene to be exact, but let's just call it plastic of plastic, right? So this is the tube that goes from the top of the water heater and delivers cold water to just below the burner, or right, actually it'd be just above the burner assembly, and it heats the water and delivers that cold down there.
That's right. So it's taking the cold water to the bottom, the heat goes to the top.
Well put, because I was complicating that a little bit too much. That's right. But it pushes the cold water to the bottom, heats it up, then the hot water rises.
That's right. And it's funny because and he's saying what else gets attacked? Over time, right, the water that's in your water heater with the minerals and the hardness and stuff will deteriorate that tube. You know, obviously it takes probably a little bit longer than the sacrificial metal, the anode rod, but over time, if you have a life expectancy on a heater that's towards the end, we have seen those tubes get eaten up.
Yeah, we've seen them break in half.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And the water heater has not broken, but we get a call saying that I'm not getting as much hot water now. I take a shower for 10 minutes and it's cold, and it takes a long time for it to recover. Well, that dip tube has either broken off or deteriorated.
Yeah. It's crazy. Plastic.
That's kind of gross to think about, drinking plastic.
That's what
from
you're
the
saying.
dip tube.
That's what he was saying earlier. We were talking about it. He's like, man, our water eats plastic and we drink it.
Right.
That's where we do a whole nother show on water filtration.
That's exactly right.
So we talked about dip tube taking the cold to the top. Now let's talk about discharge. Right? Now we're going to be talking about the discharge pipe, which once the water hits the top, it's the pipe that takes it out and circulates it through your house. Normally located at the top of the water heater. Again, typically these are made of what?
Brass or galvanized.
Right? And the galvanized, we all know over time it's going to
rust.
Yeah.
The coating's going to come off. It's going to expose the steel underneath, and then eventually it will leak.
What about the brass? How well is that going to stand up?
You know, I don't know the accurate total answer for that one, in other words, but I've never seen, in my 20 years experience, brass go out.
Yeah, me neither. That's what I was
And I've seen it really old, like some of these homes around town that are Montrose that are really old, like 1910, they've got brass installed from then, and it's still working. So I don't really know the answer to that.
Okay. So discharge comes out the top. Let's talk about the next part, which is also at the top of the water heater, your supply valve. Now we're flipping sides again. This is going to be on the cold water side, right? So this is basically just a shut-off valve that's connected to your cold water supply that's going into the heater. It allows you to shut off the water, right, to the supply that's feeding into the water heater, right, supply valve. So that way you can work on it and you can do some different things. Again, okay.
That's the valve that if anything goes wrong with your water heater and it starts leaking, that's the valve you go to first.
Absolutely.
And you turn that off as fast as possible.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
To get that water heater, and it'll vapor lock, so it'll quit leaking.
Yeah.
Is what'll happen. Don't turn anything on in the house, it'll vapor lock itself and quit leaking, and then you call somebody to come see what's going wrong with it and make some determination on what you want to do from there. Right? Very important.
You know, and again with those valves, common theme, right? Depending on how they're piped in, there's deterioration that happens because of
Water.
it happens, man.
Yeah. So you want to check that.
Yeah.
Make sure it's working and
Absolutely.
operational, and that it'll
Absolutely.
shut the water off.
Hey, because if you're in a crisis like you just said, and you go to hump down on it and it doesn't shut off,
That's exactly right.
that's a whole nother set
That's
of
a whole
issues.
other issue. That's right. Now, in saying that, there's something else on the top of the water heater or on the side of the water heater, depending whether it's an electric water heater or a gas water heater. You've got what they call a temperature and pressure release valve.
Absolutely.
That's to protect you and I from this water heater actually exploding. So if this water heater malfunctions and it produces steam, what it allows to do is it sends off this release valve, which is piped to the exterior of your home, and within that release valve, it allows it to drain out that way instead of exploding.
That's right. Yeah, once the pressure gets too big, the mechanism pops, releases, and boom, the water gets out.
Those are
Save the cell.
notorious for malfunctioning. Those should be replaced no matter what every 3 years.
Yeah, replaced, checked annually.
Checked annually and replaced every 3.
That's right. So let's go back down south to probably what most people would think is a super important part, the gas burner assembly. This is going to be the area where we actually get the heat and the power source that's going to create your hot water. You know, this is the thing that absolutely you don't want going out because you're not going to have hot water without it. It's made up of a couple of different components, though, right? You have the main burner, you have the thermocouple, you have, what else is down there? The, is that it? The ignition switch?
Ignition switch, yeah. And then all of that comes out as well and goes to your controller.
And there's a control
So
valve,
you've got your control that feeds into that burner assembly.
which
that
also
has-
houses a thermostat, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and all those different things. So again, different things can happen and different things can go out and go wrong with it. Thermostat's not working, well, obviously then your heater's not going to register to kick on the burner, and all those things. These things are notorious for getting dirty, right? Getting clogged up with dust, debris, stuff of that nature. And some of it's just old.
Why is that? Why would it get stopped up with dust and debris?
Well, it's in your attic for one.
Well, let's just say there's no air movement in the attic, which is not accurate. But let's just say it's not. How does it get inside that water heater?
Well, you have to have air for fire,
There you go.
right?
It takes oxygen to burn the fire, and it actually sucks air into that water heater. So this is in the attic, it is sucking in insulation, particles, particulates, stuff like that into that water heater. It needs to be cleaned.
Yeah, and a lot of times, you know, you can probably replace piece by piece in the burner assembly. A lot of times we recommend full replacement, especially depending on the age and stuff of that nature. Now, this is one part that doesn't really touch water, so it's one of the few very pieces that doesn't corrode with the water because it doesn't really touch it. Now, that's on gas heaters only. Now, you have a different kind of element,
Right?
that handles electric water heaters and how they heat. It's the electric heating elements. All of them have two, right? And they're located at the top and the bottom. That's why they're called the upper and the lower. They both operate off a thermostat. Same thing happens. What's funny about this is that the lower will normally always go out before the upper. And the way that this works is just as you're thinking, that the tube, the water goes into the bottom, right? So that's where
Cold water goes to the
That's right.
bottom, just like a gas
So
water
your,
heater.
Your lower is going to work so much more often than your upper. Your upper is only doing it as the temperature changes, and that thermostat says, oh, we're getting too cold up top, let's kick on. So your lower element is constantly working twice as much as your upper. That, and they're made of normally magnesium. Yeah, and stuff of that nature. And what does that do when it sits in water? Because it's directly inserted with a screw-type fitting that goes directly into the tank of the heater, and it's sitting in water all the time and working. And with our hardness, it just corrodes over time in use.
They stick to it, ruins the heating element. That's when you know I'm in the shower again. And if you only have one element working, you're going to know it,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to get the hot water delivery, or it's not going to be as hot as what you're used to.
Yeah.
So you'll know to call somebody that, hey, this thing's not working like it was.
Yeah. And again, when these kind of things go out, You can replace one at a time. Normally, we recommend replacing them in a pair so they stay at the same age. We know that the lower goes out twice as fast as the top, but it's good to keep them in unison.
That's right. So if you replace one, you want to replace both.
Yeah.
So therefore, you know. And that's what I tell people about water heaters in their attic. If you have 2 water heaters in your attic that are feeding your house, don't replace one. Replace both of them at the same time, right? One's going to be overworking itself because it's older. Then you've got a brand new one sitting there. The one that's older overworking itself, right? Because now it's got sediment in there. There's other problems with it. It's not efficient anymore.
That's right.
You got one efficient, one not efficient. Just replace them both at the same time.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's recorded, done, and you do that when it comes time to replace them again, do them both at the same time.
Yeah, you said something pretty interesting, sediment. We hadn't talked about that, right? The buildup of sediment, which leads us to our next part on the water heater, which is going to be the drain valve. This is normally located in the bottom part of your water heater. Some of them are plastic on some of these newer heaters. We like to have, a brass valve, but the main function of this valve is for maintaining your water heater. Over time, stuff does happen, sediment gets built up. It is recommended that you flush your water heater. Matter of fact, because of things that we're doing within the company, we were reading on some manuals, and it calls annually for this to happen. And it goes from that valve. All it is you're connecting a water hose or some sort of pipe up to it to get it somewhere to a safe location. You're opening it up to flush that water heater to make sure that any deposits that might be, located in the bottom of that tank get moved out before. Because if you wait too long, it's too late. I mean, if you get 3 or 4 inches, of sediment, you're not moving that much sediment out. It's going to clog everything up.
In saying that, they're making batteries, and they're calling them maintenance-free batteries. Like, you don't have to add water to them.
Really?
Yeah, maintenance-free. Well, here's what I can guarantee you. Your water heater is not maintenance-free.
No, it's not.
It's not. You need to do annual maintenance on that. You need to clean it. You need to drain it to get it operational at performance, right?
Yeah.
That's the key. You want it as efficient and make it last as long as it can.
Absolutely. You
key,
change the oil in your car, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. The key to what?
No, that's good. Changing oil in my car. If I said no, what happens?
Ah, man. My sister did that when she was 17 and about blew it up.
Oh, I had a friend did blow his up when we were younger. Yeah.
And the funny thing is anything that needs to be maintained normally comes with, one, it's probably important in your life, right? You need it on an everyday basis. And normally it comes with a price tag of replacement that's not pennies, right? There is a good cost to a water heater, and it needs to be maintained, so you are getting 10 years versus 6.
That's right.
That's the whole purpose of the whole, all these items is to make sure when you're looking at them, again, we're just coming out of winter, it's been working. You want to make sure that it's still operating at the best that it can, and that when it was working really hard, everything's still at the best possible performance that it can be.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. I think I want to leave our viewers one thought on a water heater, and that is, it's not set it and forget it. You can't set it and forget it.
No. Yeah, that's true.
Remember back from the commercial days?
Dude, I do. I'm trying with that rotisserie.
Yeah. Which is not your water heater.
Yeah,
it's not set it and forget it.
Yeah, do not.
It takes maintenance, you guys. I hope on today's show you learned a few things. Any questions? John and I are always here for you. And we do a lot of water heaters. Like, a lot. And we know a thing or two about them.
At least
we're here for you. Whether we do the work, we don't do the work, if it's acting funny, you've got a question, call us. Yeah, we're happy to answer that. And we got a call on a water heater the other day from where? Indiana?
Yep.
And we're like, how did you get our name? They saw the show and wanted to ask a question, so they called in. I thought that was awesome.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I like getting those, actually.
Yeah,
the further away, the cooler it is.
It was, yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.